She's harassing me. I have to go to court to get a restraining order. And at some point, we go to court, and I had recorded her because one of the last times that she was calling me, hanging up, calling me, hanging up, and she's just yelling. I decided that I'm going to record this. This is when I recorded her and I pressed charges. So we end up at court, and they come to me, the prosecutor comes to me, and she wants to know, we want to lessen the charge to a misdemeanor. And something in me looked at that lady and said, no, not doing it. Um, I was there to defend myself. I didn't have a lawyer. Okay. It's just me in my recordings, but I had faith in God that, the truth would prevail. I would prevail, and I would get what I'm supposed to get out of this, which is the restraining order. But by no means whatsoever in that moment, I decided I am not flying. It's flying away. Okay. Fight or flight is what I know you all have heard that term, fight or flight. I decided I'm going to fight. I'm not flying. I'm not running no more. Welcome to Becoming with Angelina Watkins, where we are turning dreamers into believers and doers through open and transparent stories of the lives of those who have overcome adversity, have found a level of success, and are living a fulfilled life on their terms. Candid conversations where we're giving you a fresh perspective in the blueprint to win at love, life, and money. And so in this episode, I'm going to continue with telling you my story. And so if you remember in the last podcast, I had shared my Me Too story. And I had talked about how I have become someone that God did not intend me to be. All right. So there is the anger, the insecurities, the mistrust, not wanting to be controlled, not being able to, or don't want to listen to authority. And so before I get to talking and continue the story, I want to talk about the levels of being, because there's three phases of your being. There's the becoming phase, the unbecoming phase, and the being phase. So in the becoming phase, that's the phase where you are becoming someone that you were not supposed to be. Your upbringing, the way you were raised, the neighborhood you were raised in, the education that you received, the bad experiences, any trauma, tragedies that you've experienced, those things shaped and molded you into someone that God did not create you to be, right? And those things create what I call emotional blockers. And we're left with scars and residues from our past. Scars being negative emotions, and residue being those negative self-sabotaging behaviors that we now display as a result of what has happened to us or how we were raised. And so that's what causes us to be angry, causes us to be bitter, causes us to be petty, that causes us to be jealous and not trusting, to live our life in fear. A lot of us are perfectionists and control freaks, and it all comes from stuff that has happened to us in our past and has created this person that we are. And now we've got to unbecome. That's the second phase. We have to unbecome those things. We have to unlearn these bad habits, which then takes us into the third phase of being, where we are being who we were created to be, where we are being and walking in our purpose, where we are being happy, we're free, we're at peace, right? We're what I call unbothered. You're unbothered with what's going on. You're unbothered with what people have to say. You're unbothered with what they're talking about. You're not letting those things phase you, but you're staying focused, and you're forging ahead in your being. You're not just existing, but you're living life to the fullest, and you're living life on your terms. And so my story started out in the last podcast of me talking about my becoming. And in this podcast and future podcasts, I'll continue to talk about my becoming, how I became that angry person, how I became that person who didn't want to be controlled, how I became that person who just wanted to break free. Okay. And in this episode, it's going to be a little hard for me not to talk future, past, and future, or no, excuse me, past from when I was a child, but past as in not that long ago as an adult. Sometimes it's kind of hard to separate what happened to you when you're a child and to not give you the whole story. So I want to give you the whole story in this episode. And what I want to talk about in this episode is the fear of dying. And so I created, well, I won't say I created, again, our past experiences, our upbringing, the things we see, the things that have happened to us creates something inside of us. It's not something we wanted to create, it just happens. And so I had developed a fear of dying. And it came from when I was 11 years old and I lost my cousin, who was like my best friend cousin. And I'm going to tell you about that story and then bring you further into the future as to how I end up overcoming that fear of dying. So I'm going to start when I, was 11 years old because that was my first brush with losing someone. And so I had lost people, been to funerals. Grandma passed away, but I was kind of too young. 11 years old, I remember what happened. And I lost a cousin who I was really close to. And I just remember one night my mom gets this phone call, and it's kind of like a frantic phone call. I can't really hear my aunt on the other end of what she's saying, but I can tell from my mom's side of the conversation that it's not good. And so I go with her, me and my sister, we go with my mom over to my auntie's house, and we go into the apartment, and I just vividly remember this. I can still picture this apartment. That's just how vivid this memory is to me. And so when you walk in the door, and to your left, to the left is a galley kitchen, and then on the right is like a closet. So when you go past the kitchen, there is like a dining area off to the left, and you have your living room, but off to the right is a long hallway. Okay, and when I looked down this hallway, there was spaghetti everywhere. Okay, when I say everywhere, I mean everywhere. There is spaghetti along both sides of the wall, from the top to the bottom. I mean, it looked like, and I hate to say it like this, but The Exorcist, like someone or someone got in a food fight and was just throwing spaghetti all over the walls. But that's my vivid memory of walking in and seeing all of this spaghetti on the wall. So I sit in the living room, and I'm hearing my aunt tell my mom what happened. And what had happened was my cousin had been at the community center playing basketball. She had asthma. She had not taken any of her asthma medication. She had not ate. So she comes home and she eats the spaghetti, and she has an asthma attack. And when she had the asthma attack, it caused her to regurgitate all the spaghetti that she ate, and it was all over the walls. And so it's not sounding good, but of course, at the time, I don't really know how big of a deal this is until later on we find out that she did not make it, and she passed away. And so in this moment, not probably exactly that moment, but I'm realizing that, I'm 11 years old. My cousin was like 11 or 12 years old. I could die at any day. What if I don't live to see adulthood? What if I don't live to have children? What if I don't live to get married? What if I don't live, a full life? And so that began my fear of dying. I didn't want to die. I didn't want to die without experiencing some things. I didn't want to die without having a family, without having, experience having a child. I didn't want to miss out. And this will play a part in a future story that I'll tell you all about, the things that I felt like I was missing out on and how that impacted me. But this is a fear now. I don't want to miss out. I don't want to miss out. And so I have a fear of dying. And as an 11-year-old who doesn't know how to regulate her thoughts and regulate her emotions, my mind begins to run wild as I continue to grow up, as to imagining all of these ways that I could die and all these things that could happen to me. And I do want to tell you that I'll go to this funeral. I'm holding in the tears. I don't want to let them out. I don't know why I don't want to let it out, but eventually, I do begin to cry. But this was hard for me because this was my friend, this was my cousin. We were really close and I loved her. What am I going to do now without my friend cousin? And so I want to say, parents, your children experience death, and it confuses them just like it may adults. And I remember feeling so hurt, and not a one person asked me, was I okay? That I can remember. Not a one person, helped me process this pain or help me process all the deaths that I have experienced when I was younger. And so this was something that I would have to process alone, and I would have to work out my feelings alone, and I would have to work out missing my cousin, and crying to myself that she's now gone. But this created a fear, imagination running wild, overthinking things as to, all of these things that could happen to me, how I could, pass away. And I just don't want to die, y'all. I just don't want to die. Now, I'm going to fast forward. That was when I was 11. I'm going to fast forward to, gosh, I don't even know how old I was, maybe about 34, 35, maybe somewhere. I want to say 34. I'd have to calculate it. I didn't calculate it before I started the podcast. I'll have to calculate it. But I would say it's about 34 because I had already had my daughter. I had her when I was 32, and she was going on 1.5, 2 years old. So what had happened was I was in a relationship with my daughter's father, and the relationship was not going well. And part of the split, I find out that, and I'm going to save that story probably for another day, but yes, I found out he's cheating. I find out that he fathered another child, and now the side chick is stalking me. Okay, she's calling my phone, she's harassing me, she's calling me all the time, wee hours in the morning, hanging up, calling back, hanging up, calling back. She's calling my cell phone. At some point, when I originally talked to her, I find out this girl knows everything about me. She knows where I live. She knows my home phone number. She knows my cell phone number. She knows where I work. She knows what my house, the inside of my house looks like. Like, she knows everything about me, and I know nothing about her. And so she's calling me and she's yelling at me, and you know, and I'm not picking up the phone. And this would be more than once. I remember going to the grocery store, have my baby with me. I'm in the grocery store, grocery shopping, and she's in the grocery store. And she's following me around in the grocery store. I'm going from aisle to aisle, and she's going from aisle to aisle, watching me, looking at me. And I'm just saying to myself, oh my God, this girl is crazy. Like, what is she going to do? You are calling my phone nonstop. You're following me around in the grocery store. Like, you know where I live. You know everything about me. Again, now my imagination is running wild that there could, at any point in time, I can walk out my door and then she could do something to me. I could lose my life. My baby can lose her life. And so, again, I'm living in fear. And I can't even tell you all the exact moment, but she's harassing me. I have to go to court to get a restraining order. And at some point, we go to court, and I had recorded her because one of the last times that she was calling me, hanging up, calling me, hanging up, and she's just yelling. I decided that I'm going to record this. This is when I recorded her and I pressed charges. So we end up at court, and they come to me, the prosecutor comes to me, and she wants to know, we want to lessen the charge to a misdemeanor. And something in me looked at that lady and said, no, not doing it. Um, I was there to defend myself. I didn't have a lawyer. Okay. It's just me in my recordings, but I had faith in God that, the truth would prevail. I would prevail, and I would get what I'm supposed to get out of this, which is the restraining order. But by no means whatsoever in that moment, I decided I am not flying. It's flying away. Okay. Fight or flight is what, I know you all have heard that term, fight or flight. I decided I'm going to fight. I'm not flying. I'm not running no more. I'm not running scared. I'm not going to live my life worried about what's going to happen to me, nor am I going to allow someone to make me live in fear. I'm not backing down. This is just something that just rose up in me. I'm not backing down whatsoever. No, we're not going to lessen these charges. So I did it. I went in there, told my story, had my recordings, and I won. I won. And so I won the case. And that was my little taste of fighting back and my little taste of knowing that, you know what, honey, life is not promised to you. And what you got to do is live for today. You can't worry about tomorrow. You've got to live for today. Do all that you can. Enjoy life. Go to the places you want to go to. Don't worry about what other people got to say, because at the end of the day, I don't have anything for you. Okay? So you got to live your life for you. That was my taste of, I'm no longer going to sit back. I'm no longer going to just exist. I decided that I was going to be. And that was probably part of the catalyst of me deciding that I'm going to go on this journey of healing. I'm going to go on this journey of getting my freedom and getting my peace and getting my peace of mind. Okay. And taking charge of my life and reclaiming my life and controlling my life and not letting someone else control me through fear. So that is my story of how I became to live in fear, but it took a bad experience. It was a bad experience that put me in, the mindset of living in fear. But then it took a bad experience for me to get out of living in fear. And that's why now I don't have fear. Whatever happens, happens. Whatever's gonna happen is gonna happen. All I know is I gotta live for today. I can't live for tomorrow. I gotta live for today. So that's why when the pandemic came, and Corona hit, and I had a lot of family members and friends that are living in fear, and I'm sitting here saying to myself, y'all got to get a clue of who God is. He done brought me too far in my life to let something happen to me. He done brought me too far in showing me what my purpose is and what he has me to do, and he gave me an assignment on earth to just let it all be taken away. So I have to believe that God gave me an assignment that he wants me to fulfill. And if he wants me to fulfill that assignment, then I can't walk around afraid of living. I got to live for today. I got to live for my purpose. I got to be. Okay. So that's my story of becoming afraid, unbecoming afraid, and then living in my being of freedom, power, and peace. Now, as always, I thank you for tuning in. I want you to remember that where you are is not where you have to be. Your past does not define you. You defined you. So heal, transform, and pursue you. Just be.